Hi everyone, welcome back to Pommy and Oz. Hope we're all doing absolutely awesome on this fine Friday. How good is that, eh? Do you know what I mean? Waking up to a little bit of positive news for a change. It feels like, I don't know about anyone else, but last 2 weeks, kind of just been a big conduit, bit of a weight on the old shoulders. We did the preview, obviously, Wednesday prior to Cripps being released. And free to play, and obviously the social media sphere has got a bit mental, hasn't it? But we talk a lot on this show about mindset and headspace for players, and I wanted to categorise this into three little ways. So first, talk about why I think this is a real exciting opportunity for the team. So when shit hits the fan, you've got, you know, your two basic forms of motivation that you use. You've got the extrinsic, which is, you know, the motivation to perform the activity. Examples, you know, a reward-based scheme or to avoid getting told off. So an extrinsic motivation for your kids to clean your room is you'll ground them, for argument's sake. And then you've got, you know, there's a varying form, but if you categorise them into the two main, there's the intrinsic, and that is basically where you've got your own personal motivation inside. So you've got your extrinsic, you know, where morals, expectation, basically. Think of it that way. An intrinsic where you've got, you know, I tidy my car because I like to tidy my car. Do you know what I mean? It makes me feel good about myself. And you always, when shit hits the fan, when you're in the motivation of the development space, you're trying to work between these two. You've got to remember that extrinsic motivation exists all around you. So it's hard to play on that. But also it creates your own thing. And it's kind of, this Cripps thing is almost like an intrinsic motivation. It's something that obviously they hold Cripps very dear, the players. Do you know what I mean? They hold him very dear. But it's also an extrinsic motivation because it's come from an outside source. And what I mean by that is, when you read the board's reasoning, failure to afford procedural fairness amounts to errors of the law because we're unable to identify the evidentiary basis of the findings. The actions of Cripps were in the bumping of an opponent. We conclude findings of the jury were unreasonable and therefore suggest the appeal succeeds. So that is a big telling there that obviously the club has fought for something. They fought for their captain. And they've won. They've gone against a very big thing. Now, this is probably the greatest motivation for a player because when you are in the shit, you're looking for small wins. Small wins because small wins lead to big wins. And for me, I think this is a bigger thing. Like, it's crazy for me. I've gone into Twitter and Facebook today and seen Pies fans, which I expect them to do. I'm not blaming them. They support their club, so they have to hate us. Kind of par for the course of being a member. But the greater picture this shows is that the AFL are really stifling it. And I'm not saying Cripps is a major difference from Carlton playing finals or not for 2 games. Do you know what I mean? We missed him for round 5 and we won. So I'm not saying that, but I'm saying on a greater picture, this is Carlton fighting back. And a lot of people talk about old Carlton and their values of fighting till the death and fucking the norm, if I pardon my French. That is a huge thing for me. And I think that if anything, if I was a player right now, I would look at how my board of directors, how my administration staff have compiled not just a very compelling case, but also worked incredibly hard to overturn what, in the review's opinion, was a poor process and incorrect and against their moral fabric, which I think is huge. And that's a huge dub, not just for Carlton, for the AFL as a whole. Because at the moment, what that shows to me is what I've been saying for the last 6 weeks on the live show. The AFL is the most corrupt organisation I've ever seen. And everything is done for show. It's not done for an actual meaning of what the game is. They've lost that. And I think for a player now, I was motivational in my last show. And I think the motivation's there clear now. Do you know what I mean? You have had a tough week. The press have got on the back of Carlton. Will they, won't they play finals? Injuries around the AFL and out. That's aiding the other sides. A lot of heat. And the players do watch social media. They were saying there's been a lot of heat on them from within, from externally as well. This is the chance here, the first stage of where you go, fuck you. It's us against them. And that's the mindset these boys need to be in Saturday night. In the lights at the G. It's us versus the world. It's Carlton versus the world. And you know what? Cripps will have probably gone into this game. And let's be honest, most experts who are a lot smarter than me in the legal terms, that's not something that I even profess to have a knowledge in, thought he was doomed. And now they get to go out there with their mercurial captain and go out there and really, really set a standard. And this is big. Do you know what I mean? This is exceptionally big, I think, in the terms of if you were motivating these boys, your captain is there. Against all odds, another dub for Captain Cripps against the odds. Really, it has to be said. And now these 22 men face Melbourne against the odds, with one win under their back, and it's all for nothing. Let's be honest, it's all for nothing. If he has gone through that process, the club has gone through that process, and they don't show up. They don't show up. But I tell you what, from a level of motivation now, these boys have it. And I think it's a huge dub for all the AFL. I'm actually surprised because I'm quite well-rounded. I'll admit, I didn't think Maynard should have got done, to be honest. I thought it was a clear spoil. So I know that's Collingwood's argument of why they hate it. My question is, why didn't you fight the AFL? Why didn't you go hard? And I think this is a huge dub because I think we're getting into a very grey area. And for Carlton, Saturday night, 80,000+ at the G. 8 quarters away from completing what this man in the pictures there has had a huge, huge part of. His entire career has been this. Chips are down. One ruckman. Your big body. We've gone back to real bare basics here. It's there for them. It's there for them to take in. And now my question is to these gentlemen, how much do you want it? How much do you want it? Because I tell you what, I can't wait for this week and I can't wait for next. Because I tell you what, Pies are chuntering about this. They're chatting. And trust me, pride comes before the fall, when I've fallen many a times by letting my big mouth get into some predicaments. 8 quarters separates us from where we deserve to be, where this club knows where it is. And I tell you what, getting through that 5-hour process was an honour. The fans put the shift in. They put their shift in. It's over to them now. It's over to them. They had the entire Carlton fraternity backing them in. And that, for me, if I was Vossi, I'd be letting them know that you guys aren't alone. And this is the time heroes are made, man. This is huge this next 2 weeks. And I think this man here has got a big part to play in it. Because he will have probably got into training this week thinking, shit. Do you know what I mean? I've got to sit on my hands and watch my boys. And I don't think football is ever about one person. But one person can change the whole ethos of the team. And you see that at work, you see that in life. This can't be understated how big this is in the terms of feeling around the club. Be a huge feeling. Be a huge positive. Because I imagine if they've prepared themselves well, they have prepared all week in worst case scenario without him. The fact they've got him, hopefully in the 5 days that they've been with the players, They've come up with a plan to have a chance against Melbourne, minus him. Suddenly he comes in. It's a huge benefit. It's almost like a huge in for the team, and we see how the team lift in that. Needs must now. And honestly, if you are an opposition fan who's moaning about this, I have no affinity to AFL. I'm a POM. I'm not Aussie. Do you know what I mean? This is your game. This is your great, great game. And I cannot believe you would suddenly start to be virtue signalling over contact when you've cheered this sport on in the 80s, the 90s. You know what I mean? Yes, we have a lot of research on the effect of head knocks and trauma. However, a lot of the other sports are starting to realise that with that, we also have the science that can monitor these players very early, see early injuries, monitor them. We know what it is. But if you start taking chance and the very instinct of the game out of its game, you're only going to create more injuries. You're only going to create more injuries. And you've only got to look at other sports that have really tried to go quickly of how other injuries appear. Do you know what I mean? So this is huge for the context of the sport, that if these players are going into these games with too many thoughts, what do you think is going to happen? Because half of the reason, if you've ever played a contact sport, I played a lot of league growing up, instinct saves you. Instinct saves you. Bravery and instinct are the two things. I remember my old rugby coach telling me as a kid, first lesson at age 5 was running at the year sixes with the ball, getting tackled, and him saying to you that if you're a brave man, won't hurt. And he was right. You ran through the tackle, you pretended the guy wasn't there, you took the contact, and 9 times out of 10, your body does the right thing to protect you. Do you know what I mean? In the heat of the moment, your body is a sophisticated work of art. Survive mammoths and stuff. So it's going to survive sport. And you start putting too many thoughts into it, you're going to get hurt. You're going to get hurt if you start thinking about it. And growing up, all the players I played with who got hurt in football, in rugby, they were cowards, basically, in tackles. They had self-preservation over doing the right thing. I think this is huge. And does it give me some confidence? It does give me a bit of confidence, yes. Do you know what I mean? A huge amount of confidence, because I think that if they use this the right way, this is the catalyst for great things. I can't wait. Please join me on Saturday if you can't get down to the game. We run the show for those who have to stay at home because they're ill or they're interstate or whatever. We can't wait for it. So join me on Blue Abroad. I'm excited. And you know what, opposition fans? Fucking sit on that and swivel your fucking mouths. And Collingwood, see you next week, champs.